Hey, what's up out there? It's Dave Duford at Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com, where I help people like you succeed in selling and even cold calling for insurance appointments. And that is today's purpose for this video. I wanted to relay to you a story about what just happened to me literally a couple of days ago about one of the best cold calls I have ever seen. And the reason I want to share this with you is I want to really ingrain into your minds the power of a cold call that is well thought out, that is well targeted, and that can bring awesome results. And I'm going to kind of take you through the story first and then deconstruct the cold call to really give you an idea of what made that good and then one little thing that this particular individual could have done better. So let me paint the picture and start where we begin. So I am sitting on the back of my truck, hanging out with my wife. My 3 kids are out front playing around. My 4th one is strapped to my wife, and we're just talking, chit-chatting. And there's this awkward-looking girl walking down the street. I can't tell if she's a high schooler or if she's a college attendee. And she's just kind of making her way down the street. And I kind of watch her. You know, she looks a little odd. Nothing unusual, but just kind of weird. And as she approaches, she starts walking towards us. And I can see she just kind of dresses, lack of a better word, like a homeschooler. Not disheveled, but if you've ever seen or been around the homeschooler types, you know what I mean. And so she comes up to, she's got glasses, and she just starts talking. And she introduces herself. She says, "My name is so-and-so. I live around the other corner of the street. And I'm walking around, stopping in with people who have kids, and just introducing them to my babysitting services." And so as she says that, she hands me her card, or my wife, and she says, "I'm a rising senior. I do babysitting, light duty household work too when I babysit for people. Now, I don't have any direct experience babysitting, but I do volunteer at the Children's Hospital, so I have that as well. I'm very encouraged to get out and help people and work. And, just do a good job for the people that are around me and that want to hire me for their services." So that's like her pitch, her introduction, right? And so my wife and her start to talk and have a conversation about pricing, how it works, so on and so forth. And I'm just sitting back here, the salesman and me, just sitting back and observing, watching this all happen. And it concludes with basically her saying, "Please contact me if you're interested." Yeah, exactly, Dave. And she walks away. And so a couple of things pass through my mind because, of course, I'm like, sick in the head. I like sales experiences. It just allows me to observe the sales action on the other side of the table. I'm so used to prospecting for prospects versus for me being a prospect. So let me tell you why I thought this was really a fascinating example of the power of cold calling done right. So what did this woman do? Okay, this girl, she's 18. First of all, what she did right, and this is the big thing, is she targeted her message to the right audience, okay? So when we think of cold calling, we think in many cases just walking down the street, talking to as many people as possible. If we cold call businesses, we just go to each business, pitch our wares. If we're cold calling for Final Expense or whatever, maybe we're working a list of 50 and older. The big thing with this particular circumstance is this woman, what did she do? She targeted an obvious prospect. How did we know I was a prospect? I had a bunch of crazy kids running around out front in a baby strap. Now imagine I don't know if she thought through this as well as she did, or as I think through it. She sees a baby strapped to the chest of a woman, right? Obviously a newborn. Bunch of crazy kids outside. This is a person who wants to get away from this, right? This is a person who wants to get out of the house and have fun because there hadn't been any fun had in quite a while with a newborn. So there's obviously a starving market for this stuff. And this person approached the right type of prospect, right? Somebody who already probably, as far as a cold basis, is really interested in this particular type of service, babysitting. So what's the lesson in this case? If you're going to cold call, think of how you can cold call a really targeted type of prospect. It's not so much of a cold call. I can tell you from the person being prospected, when you target someone who hits a high odds type of buyer or a high odds type of profile of a prospect. You know, I read about this in Ben Feldman's book. He would specifically sit down, devise a prospect to target and business owners that would meet the kind of profile that he would most commonly want to target. And this is living proof of that. Obviously not exactly the same. But if you're going to cold call 100 doors, people you don't know who may be there, may not have kids, or would you rather cold call 10 doors where you've got 4 or 5 kids running around? Who would you rather cold target? Obviously the smaller list, but much target. So that was a big lesson there. The other thing, too, that I noted is I didn't really care about how this person looked. You know, a lot of us make a big fuss about how professional should you look? Should you be completely dressed up? Should you be dressed down? And even her delivery, like I make it out communicating what she said in a salesy type of way because that's just how I present myself. But she was very mouse-like, right? She's very, very quiet, very reserved. Think homeschooler, all right? All of that I could care less about, right? She was dressed well enough. It was good enough. And her presentation of what she was saying was good enough because I was already inherently interested in what she was having to say because of the fact that I have an inherent interest in having a babysitter sooner than later. So, but my point is in saying that is that, you know, sometimes we obsess about what we look like or what we say at the door. I think that matters less in contrast with targeting the right market. And sometimes we obsess over exactly what words to say and the cadence, and all of this matters, don't get me wrong. But what matters more is who we target our message to, right? Because somebody who's interested in whatever it is that you're selling is going to have a little bit more flexibility and leeway in understanding if your presentation or your pitch isn't perfect, okay? I mean, remember, this person's never done babysitting before, therefore probably hasn't done prospecting for babysitting either. So this is somebody that is, you know, even despite the presentation, which it wasn't bad at all, but, you know, there wasn't presence. There wasn't like, hey, how you doing? You know, typical salesman stuff. That mattered less because we were actually interested and because she did a good job targeting the right prospects. So one other thing I want to add here is that her presentation was great. One thing I teach agents how to present is you have to overcome objections before they become an objection. Here's a perfect example of how she did it. She thought of 2 things that may have been problematic. Number 1, I've never been a babysitter before. So I may have asked, well, how much experience do you have? So before she even had to address that, and before that crossed my mind, I didn't even think about this. She said, I've not had experience, but I have experience working at a children's hospital. So there's an implied connection, right? Babysitting and children's hospital. So I didn't even object to that. That didn't even cross my mind. When she said it, I thought, okay, cool. That's fine. That's close enough. It's kind of how I concluded, you know, intuitively. The other thing she did, she handed her business card out, and on the back of the card was some sort of web link or web listing of her background check. I thought this was awesome because, well, what's another objection of being approached on the street to babysit your kids? Well, this person is like, you know, some convict, right? It's got a record, you know, not someone we want around our children. And that is a perfect objection. I didn't even think of this talking to her because her demeanor didn't even register with me that might be the case. But obviously she wanted to address that potential objection well in advance. And me listening to it, I thought, wow, this person really has given a lot of thought to what I would be concerned with. And when I think of somebody that gives a lot of thought to something that could be potentially a problem, it makes me think this person's detail-oriented. They're an expert, or that they're on top of things. This is a person I want to take care of my kids versus some random person that doesn't think of this stuff because maybe that person has thought about it but didn't want to talk about their, you know, jail record or whatever. So what's the teachable moment here? Well, the teachable aspect here is that in a sales presentation, if you take time to address objections ahead of time, if you take time to address objections inside of your sales presentation, you'll be shocked at how well that you do selling what it is that you do. because the biggest concern is that, are we dealing with somebody who's a professional, or whatever the objections are? And the fact that this person did all this stuff was just awesome. And I was just really impressed. And I'm thinking, as I'm listening to this person, I've already been closed in my mind. I'm thinking, I got to hire this person. Why? Because first of all, she's got the guts to walk up to this guy. Second of all, she's got the guts to just make an approach at such a young age. I'm just super impressed because, most kids are, head down on their phones, and they've never probably had a conversation with a real person using words out of their mouth. So I was super impressed, and have to hire her. And so here's some things I wanted you guys to take away. Well, number one, last thing I mentioned in the notes. What did she not do? Okay, this is no, I'm not going to ask you to answer it, but what she didn't do is ask for the sale. What she should have done, and look, I'm not holding it against her. Everything else is perfect. She should have asked, is this something you'd like to do? Or is this something you're interested in considering? Or she should have asked some type of soft closing question. Again, me picking this apart, she should have asked for the job. Done something because, you can do everything right, but if you don't ask for the job, I'm just following this person's lead. She's telling me what she does, how she does things. We're assuming that she's the one guiding us along and how things are done. And if she doesn't conclude with us buying something from her, or at least agreeing to a next step, well, then what happens, right? I mean, we may have every intention of hiring this person. Yeah, hey, thanks, Doug. We may have every intention of hiring this person, but I got a lot of kids. My house is a wreck half the time. That card may flip out, go somewhere, and never to be had again, and I won't have any way of getting back in touch with this person, okay? So the close, again, I'm micro-critiquing this person. The close should have been, what's your information? Can I follow up with you? Or what agree to a next step, to some kind of next step to follow up. Because even if you have every good intention to buy, as we do, something may happen where it doesn't occur. And that's just the way it is when you don't ask for the sale. So the takeaway here, ladies and gentlemen, is you got to ask for the sale. Your clients are trusting you to know the process of what it is to buy. Because a lot of the time, like me, I said earlier, I'm like, hey, I want to hire this person. I want to buy. I just don't know how to buy. You got to show me how to buy. And the way that you do that is by telling me what to do, right? Because when we're entranced in a sales situation with an expert that we're really interested in, we're expecting to receive guidance up to a point, right? We don't want to have a gun put to our head and force to purchase. But if we respect somebody, we would trust them, we like them, we're completely content with being told what the logical next step to do, what the recommendation is. So that would be my only critique. So a couple of last points here with this whole shebang. Number one, I was super impressed with, this teenager coming up and approaching me cold, approaching my family cold for business. Not all millennials are losers, you old people, and Generation Z too. Secondly, this is for you guys out there that struggle with prospecting. I've been reading all sorts of books on prospecting. I read a lot anyway. And here's the deal. If an 18-year-old girl that looks like a homeschooler can walk up to me and ask for business, then you as a grown man have no excuse to get out there and find it, okay? You have everything in your side, in your corner to be successful. There are people out there who are younger than you, who have less experience than you, but have more balls and that are doing it. And again, I'm not speaking to you people out there, you agents, you salespeople that actually do this and don't have a problem. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you, the person that has, fear. We all have fear of prospecting to different various levels, but the only way to overcome this stuff, the simplest way is just to do it. And what you'll find is when you just do it, it's like exercise. It gets easier. The more motions you make, you start to care less, and it becomes an easier process. And most important of all, the biggest takeaway before I wrap this thing up is that if you cold call and you experience call reluctance, I can tell you, being on the prospect side, that I'm not going to be nearly as judgmental of a salesperson approaching me to try to sell me something if they have taken the time to think thoroughly about who they are targeting to see if they're interested in a particular type of service. Remember, this babysitter targeted me because I was obviously a prospect. And what you need to think of as a salesperson is how can you find prospects that fit the profile of whatever it is that you're selling. If you're selling Medicare, my God, please target people turning 65. Even everybody over 65 is good, but especially turning 65. You could cold call all day and find prospects left and right because they are thinking about Medicare. Mortgage protection. Look, you just bought a home. You just filed a mortgage. You've got all this debt now that you didn't have 5 days ago, and you can get their information to cold call them. Just show up. They'll appreciate that you solved that information and concern. And if they don't care, they're full of crap anyway. You don't want to deal with them. So I say all this as a motivator, okay? There's young people out there doing this. There's huge opportunity, and it is not a big deal if you cold call the right way and take time to cold call targeted people that really fit your profile. You'll find that they're pretty much leads like we were. I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Dave Duford. I do all sorts of videos on insurance sales and prospecting training, usually 4 to 5 times a week, depending on how motivated that I am. If you like this video, please subscribe if you haven't already, and also leave a thumbs up. And if you want to leave a comment, you're welcome to. I'll be happy to personally address it. My name is Dave Duford, Final Expense Agent Mentor, checking out. See you later.